Welcome to Coach2Scale, how modern leaders build coaching cultures. I'm your host, Matt Benelli. Join me as we build a community of like-minded professionals who share the belief that effective coaching improves the performance of every team member. Our mission is to help leaders become better coaches. The Coach2Scale podcast is sponsored by CoachEm, the world's first AI coaching execution platform that leverages evidence-based coaching to increase quota attainment. And with that, let's get started.
Before we get too far, we should also say that this debate is sponsored by CoachEm. CoachEm is a really cool AI tool that can help sales managers have better one-to-ones. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that later too. But Matt Benelli is our host of the Coach2Scale podcast. And both of our guests today, Kevin and Mark, have been guests on the podcast. And it just so happened that they had opposite takes on this question we're debating today. We're going to talk about whether you can, should, or would be friends with your reps in a debate style format today. And your moderator is the host of the Coach2Scale podcast. You can subscribe on all of your favorite apps. I'll put the link here in the chat in just a second. But Matt Benelli, welcome to the Closing Arguments.
Mike, thanks a lot. And welcome, everyone. As Mike said, I am Matt Benelli, and I'll be moderating today's inaugural Closing Arguments debate, proudly sponsored by CoachEm and the Coach2Scale podcast. This is designed to provide some interesting points of view where people are on both sides of a topic that's debated daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly in our sales world in the arena. And if you've listened to the Coach2Scale podcast before, we go deep into what it takes to build elite sales teams, but not your typical Coach2Scale episode. Today's a live, unscripted debate style event born from the pattern I've noticed again and again. Great sales leaders like Mark, like KG, often disagree strongly on the very same leadership questions. One of the more divisive ones, or the more debatable ones, can sales managers be friends with their sales reps without sacrificing performance, accountability, or respect? On one side, the yes side, we have Mark Kosoglow, co-founder and CEO of Operator and employee number one at Outreach, where he helped grow the company well beyond $200 million in revenue. And Mark believes that genuine connection drives performance. In his view, friendship isn't a threat to leadership, it's a foundation for it, for trust, loyalty, and high output. On the other side, the no side, we have Kevin Gaither, KG, longtime sales leader, big stint at ZipRecruiter, advisor and CEO of InsideSalesExpert.com. He's built and led high-performing SaaS sales orgs for over 2 decades. And he argues that friendship blurs the lines that must stay clear. And for him, leadership demands professional distance, objectivity, and tough calls, not friendship. So, where's the line between empathy and authority, between connection and control? And what happens when you cross it? Guess what? We're going to find out. So here's how it's going to work. Each side, and we flipped a coin. We're going to start with KG. Each side's going to give their opening positions. Then we're going to have a crossfire, 2-3 minutes, where each guest can drill the other one. And these guys go back. They know each other. They're not afraid to talk smack, and they're not afraid to drill each other.
He already did. He already was talking smack in the chat there.
Yeah, that's good. Like, let's talk smack. We're here to have fun. Then we're going to have the host challenge. That's when I get to chime in. I'm not good at being Switzerland, but I'm going to drill these guys as best I can. I've come up with some questions built from experience, being friends and not being friends and having all the good and bad things happen. We'll go to some scenario-based questions. But then I think a cool part of this, which we hope to get to, is have you, the jury, the people in the audience. You can ask questions, and you can do that a couple of ways. So just want to give you the heads up on this. You can raise your hand to let us know that you're out there. My colleague, Mike Montague, who's the producer of the Coach2Scale podcast and who helped make this event possible. He's in the background there. He's going to make sure he's keeping track of the chat questions. So raise your hand if you want to ask a question, or you can put it in the chat. You can direct message Mike, or you can put your question in the chat, and we'll do our best to pick it up. And at the end, KG and Mark are going to give 1 minute closing arguments. Then we're going to do a poll. And the poll is simply going to ask you who was more persuasive with their point of view. And we'll wrap up from there and let everybody get on with their day. Mike, did I miss anything that we should add before we jump right into it?
I think you nailed it. Again, for you as the participants, you can turn your video on. We'd love to see you. Don't forget to hit the raise hand if you want to chime in, or just type in the chat as we go along. Ask your questions, challenge them. We want to get to some sort of decision today and best practices for sales leaders. The Coach2Scale debate here is brought to you by CoachEm, and their philosophy is really not shy away from these difficult questions for sales leaders. But how do we use AI or data and the dozens of years of expertise here on the call to help sales managers and sales leaders get better outcomes? And so that's why we're all here. Appreciate you joining us. We'll also share the recording and stuff afterwards. It'll come out as a Coach2Scale podcast next week. If you think anybody else needs to hear it, hopefully you can share it and chime in or send it to your team as well. Let's get started.
Let's roll, as they say. Great to see a lot of familiar faces out there. And whether your camera's on or off, make sure you weigh in and ask questions and vote at the end. So, KG, you won the toss. You've elected to receive. You got a couple of minutes. Get us going with your opening position.
Yeah, opening position. Well, listen, when I was an inexperienced sales leader, I thought I could be friends with my employees, and even thought I needed to be friends with my sales reps to build their trust and their loyalty, because I wanted to be liked, because I didn't know any better. And it seemed like the right move at the time. But over the last 27 years of sales leadership at 8 startups, which 3 of which have been either acquired or gone public, I quickly found out how dangerous that approach was, being friends with your salespeople. And when you become friends with your team, the lines get blurred, and suddenly you're hesitant to have those kind of critical and crucial conversations, and feedback starts to feel like personal and not professional, like when you're friends with them. And when you have to make a tough decision, like putting someone on a PIP or firing them, you realize that friendship doesn't protect you, and it actually backfires on you. And I've seen firsthand, myself and with other managers and clients that I coach, how people can turn against you, your friends, your so-called friends, when their backs are against the wall. And even if you thought you had built a friendship, it's out the door. That's the reality. And that's not some sort of hypothetical or an opinion. That's the reality. And that's why I say you could be friendly and be approachable, and you should be an empathetic leader, but don't cross that line into like being friends, because when you do, you risk losing like your authority, damaging your team culture, because like you're being friends with some and not others, frankly, and putting your career on the line. And I've got a real story for that, Matt, and I hope you ask me about it. At the end of the day, leadership requires respect and objectivity. And in my experience, the best leaders, the most experienced leaders, and the most successful leaders, they earn respect. They're not trying to earn friendship.
All right. KG, thank you very much for weighing in on that. Just about 2 minutes. So, job well done. Mark, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Thanks for having me. KG, great to see you again. For those that don't know, KG and I first met over 10 years ago at an American Association of Inside Sales Professional conferences, where I think we squared off for the very first time when we met each other. So just continuing that. Listen, there's some things with Kevin's argument that I think are dead and on point. You need to be objective, but there's some things that I think aren't on point. I would say that there's a lot of people that say that you shouldn't be friends with your kids. You should be their parent. I'm friends with my kids, but I'm also their parent. And I can be friends with someone, but also be their boss. And maybe it's a little bit more difficult to navigate, but when you're clear, transparent, and honest with people, sometimes you can't help them but become their friends, and they can't help but become your friend. And when you're also operating in that way, it's not hard to put someone on a PIP if they're your friend, because they see it coming and they know what the requirements are to be put on PIP. And if they're not meeting them, they go on PIP. I think the main thing that happens is people conflate friendship with accountability. They say, I can't be accountable with a friend. And I think it's the exact opposite. My best friends are my best accountability partners, because I trust them, because we have deep relationship, we have a lot of history together, because we trust each other in a way that we can't trust each other if they're not my friend. And I think the same thing happens. I've been texting with 2 reps today that I've managed in my career that both need help right now. Guess who they come to ask for help? Me. And when I need help, guess who I go to ask for help? Them. And the reason they don't help me isn't because I was their boss. It's not because I made them a lot of money when they were my reps. It's because I'm their friend. And to me, life, to be a little cliche, is short. And I want to surround myself with people I like who are my friends, not employees that do my bidding and that I lord over. And I know that Kevin doesn't do that, but I'm saying I think that when you say you can't be friends with somebody, it invites that type of behavior. And that's not a culture that I want to be a part of.
Awesome. Mark, thank you. Gentlemen, thanks a lot. Both on point, on message, and succinct. Nice job. So now we'll move into what we'll call the crossfire, clarifying challenge. So each guest will have about 3 minutes where they can ask clarifying questions and challenge and grill their counterparts. In the spirit of the order we've been following, KG, why don't you take the floor and challenge Mark?
Well, Mark, thanks for the kind words. I appreciate it, man. Yeah, we've known each other for a long time, so I think we can have a good time with this. About a year ago, you actually wrote about building your squad, a group that you hang out with, who's got your back. When your squad includes people that you socialize with out of work, like you would friends, how do you manage to maintain those professional boundaries that are necessary for true objective leadership?
I think that objective leadership requires data, not subjective judgment calls. And when you lead in a data-driven organization and you clearly define the expectations that people meet and the consequences of not meeting those, then it doesn't even become a conversation. It just becomes a consequence of their performance and or actions and or ability to and willingness to do the job. And listen, I had a guy that worked for me in Boston. We were definitely friends. I had to put on a pip and he got really pissed at me for putting him on, even though he clearly knew it was coming and knew what was going. And it did threaten our relationship, but it didn't keep me from having the conversation and it didn't keep him from pushing back. What it did is it allowed me to say, hey, let's say his name's Bob. Bob, I'm not doing this because I think it's something I just want to do. I'm doing this because it's something I have to do. And because you trust me, you should understand how that works. And we had a great conversation that helped him understand why he might have had management issues in the past and whatnot. So that's what I would say is like, I don't think I get precluded or have any different kind of conversations for you, but I do have something to fall back on that says, look at my motivation. My motivation is pure because I'm your friend. My motivation isn't like political or just this is how I feel right now, or I'm like going to push down my problems onto you.
You're leading right down to my next question, actually. And thank you for bringing up Bob. Do you feel like that conversation with Bob was even slightly more difficult than it was with a rep that you're not friends with because you were friends with them and you had to explain yourself?
Sure. I was way more nervous to have the conversation, but I know that's my job. So I went and did it anyway. But I think it was a better conversation, even though it might have been harder to have.
Yeah, but it required you to speak to him differently than you did other people because of that friendship. You had to speak to him differently. You had to explain yourself more because of that closeness.
Bad?
It's different.
Oh, wasn't bad for me.
It's different.
Every person you manage is different, KG. You know.
This is true. Yeah, there's no question about it. So given the level of personal connection you described, have you ever had to make an even more difficult decision, a demotion or anything else? Tell me about a time besides Bob when you had to navigate that without the friendship clouding that decision or causing resentment between the two of you.
Yeah. So I think it was my first external VP hire at Outreach. I had an amazing sales manager, but he wasn't an executive. He knew how to work deals and help reps, but he couldn't see further out in the distance and have that high level approach that an executive has. And so I had to let him go.
Yeah.
And he wasn't expecting it, even though his performance should have told him that he should have been expecting it. And yeah, that was a tough conversation. You know what? He didn't talk to me for 6 months.
Yeah.
But you know what? When we came back, we rooted again in the friendship and rekindled our relationship. And now we're good friends again and we talk again and help each other out. And so, yeah, there might've been some hurt, but I guarantee you he would never have come back and I would never have continued to benefit from that relationship if we weren't friends in the beginning. But Kevin, here's what I'd like to ask you. So we're firing back and forth.
Hey, so Mark, let me chime in on that because the clock's up and the ball's back. The ball is in your court. So this is the perfect time to take that and start giving it back to KG.
Oh man.
Yeah. So KG, listen, I don't know if I have a huge problem with what you said, but the part that confuses me is how do you keep from becoming friends? Like, that's the hard part for me is like, ultimately, over time, we develop a friendship. How do you prevent that from happening?
Yeah. See, what most people don't understand and what the audience needs to understand that this is a 1%. These are 1% situations that could be career enders for you, for anybody who's doing this. And you don't know where that 1% is coming from. So much like you, Mark, and we've been friends for a long time, and I love your stuff on LinkedIn, of course, there has to be a level of empathy. And you have to care. I believe that like leadership is caring. Like you want to care about the people that work for you. And so you are correct in that it feels like the next natural step is just to be friends. If you truly are caring about them, you're asking about their vacation plans, the people that they're dating, their marriage, their goals for their lives. These are all the things you want to be asking about to connect their personal lives with what they do at work. But the line has to be drawn when it's, hey, let's go on double dates with the wives and the girlfriends, or hey, let's go to a Raider game and go hang out, or let's go on a one-on-one dinner. Look, you can go on 100 one-on-one dinners with a member of the opposite sex, and 99% of the time, nothing's going to go wrong. But then there could be that 1%, and we're really talking about that 1% mark that makes it really challenging. And so you have to know where that line is between being friendly and empathetic and like truly being friends. Look, excuse me, but I tell dick and fart jokes with my buddies. Okay. I wouldn't do that with my employees. And when I have, I've gotten burned.
Yeah. I think there's a line of professionalism that you can't cross even in a friendship, right? When there's the boss thing. But KG, how do you think through this? A 1%, maybe it's even bigger than that. I'd be willing to concede that this friendship may backfire, but look at the richness you get by having a deeper relationship. How do you calculate those costs? Why do you exchange the deepness for the lack of risk?
Yeah, I'm not. I'm not. That's what I'm talking about. I can still look, I'm not interested in having deep conversations with my employees about my family and mental health issues and all sorts of things that are going on in my family. When I'm talking to my employees and my salespeople, I'm trying to coach them where they go. I feel like I'm a steward of their career. And in the short time they work for me, I want to make them better. And I want them to go someplace else and do great things. Okay. So I care about them. I love them. I say that word. I love them. I love them. But I don't cross that line. I don't cross the line into some real friendship where we're going to go to a concert together or something like that, because you just don't know where that problem is going to come for. But I can still care about them deeply. But I won't cross that line.
Yeah. Yeah, you're good now, though. Listen, I think I found in my career that the closer I bring people, the more ability I have to impact their performance in their life. And ultimately, that's what I want to have is an impact. I think the definition of a leader is you have efficacy, the ability to affect change. I can change somebody's mindset, their beliefs, their activities. And I think the best way to do that is have a personal hook. KG, how do you, when things get personal, when they get personal with you, do you draw a line and stop? A lot of conversations I've had with reps that have helped them hit quota has been helping them deal with their wife, who they have been mistreating for the last 6 months and need to go on a freaking date instead of doing another sales call to unblock them from crushing their next quarter. How do you think through that stuff?
Yeah, man. This is where I am not going to be the full-on therapist. If it starts to get really deep, and I've had those kinds of conversations where salespeople feel comfortable with me and they're unveiling really challenging things in their lives, from really big medical issues to relationship issues and parental issues and stuff like that. This is where I can go up to a point, and then my recommendation ends up being, hey, you might actually see some professional help in this area, because I can only be a therapist up to a certain point. And I can tell you how I would experience and handle these kinds of things, but this is better suited for somebody else. And honestly, do you really want your sales reps telling you about all their medical issues? In today's day and age, Mark, you do not. And friends have those discussions, but you don't want to be in a scenario where somebody's unveiling all their medical issues to you, and then you have to take action on them. And then they go, oh, you did that because I told you that I had some sort of medical issue and I was going to be out. Oh yeah, and we're trying to get pregnant. Hey, congratulations, we're pregnant. And then you fire that person because of some other objective thing. And then they go, oh, no. You fired me because I was going to be out on maternity leave or FMLA leave for 6 months. That is, again, that's a one percenter. That's a one percenter, Mark.
Let me jump in. So we'll move to the fun part for me where I get to ask the questions. And I'm just going to piggyback off of the topic that is being discussed right this second. What happens when the rep is going through something personal? You talk a little bit about how you'd handle this, KG, but what do you do? Do you go down that road a little bit, or is it strictly business? That's what you.
Yeah, no, I will go down it a little bit, but I have learned over time that there are professionals that are way better at handling a lot of those really personal issues. And that's when I'll defer to the resources that the company provides through the human resources department. And let me just give you an example. I had a sales manager, a first-time sales manager, and I will admit I didn't coach him well enough and draw lines and set expectations. He had one of his salespeople come to him who was very happy to tell him that she was pregnant and was asking for his guidance and advice on what FMLA leave was at the company. And he was so excited to help her out with all the right intentions, and he gave her the wrong information. And it almost blew up because it appeared that he was trying to do something to her when in reality, he was trying to be nice. He was trying to be helpful, but he didn't have all the answers. And what he should have done was deferred to human resources and allowed them to handle those types of really sensitive things. He had all the right intentions, but as they say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
If you can't be friends, KG, do you risk running and building a cold, impersonal?
God, no.
How do you build trust and loyalty? Strictly through like performance reviews?
Yeah, remember, we can have a whole thing. We can have another debate on performance reviews, by the way. That'd be a fun one. But no, I just want everybody to understand this and hear this very clearly. And I use the word love all the time. There's no reason why I can't care for and love my salespeople and want to see the best for them and guide them in the right direction when it comes to their career. And even tying somebody's, for example, I've got $60,000 in debt. Great. Let's break it down to how many calls you need to make per day to make a certain amount of commissions to pay off your debt in the next 6 months or go on a vacation to Bali. I'm showing true connection to where they want to go. And I can still have that connection, but not cross the line to, hey, great, by the way, you want to go to Bali together? Or, hey, you want to go to Coachella together? Like these are lines that I've learned because I've gotten burned not to cross.
So thanks, KG. Mark, when friendship arises, does it help or hurt? What if your friends start weaponizing that relationship?
I think people like that would weaponize any kind of relationship. So you're not safe no matter what. Like, I think sometimes we try to erect these walls around us to protect us from certain situations. And
Yep.
my personal preference is I'm okay with risk for the benefit of deeper, more real relationships. And that's not to say that KGs aren't deep and real, but I do feel like I've been to multiple people that have worked for me's weddings. I've been to multiple people's hospital visits when they had their first kid. I've been to multiple people's, cried with them on the phone when they got divorced. I've done all of these things, and I feel like this is my tribe. This is my community, not like me as the head, but like I'm part of this tribe and this community. And to me, a group of people can go much further together than someone that is, when they're working together, than maybe somebody that's like kind of a little bit disconnected from that group on their own.
We can work together and still be friends. Look, let me just tell you a real story. I thought I was friends with a director that I had in one of our offices in Arizona, and we were friends on Facebook. It turns out that he has different political views than me, and we would sit in the office and we would talk and discuss those views. And I found a video on Facebook when I was on it at the time, and I shared it with him via Facebook. Over time, he ended up underperforming and was absolutely a disaster. And when we went to fire him, his back was up against the wall and he wanted to extract his pound of flesh. He started then claiming that because we had differing opinions and discussed it in the office and that I force-fed videos on Facebook, he claimed that I was creating a hostile work environment. And look, I didn't know it was coming. but that was the 1%er. You don't know where it's coming from. So if you're going to try and be friends with everybody, just know that 99% of the time you're going to be fine, but you're playing with fire. And at 1%, when they're back up against the wall, it's going to burn you, and you just don't know where it's coming from. And that's a real story. That's a real story that has shaped my position where I am today.
Thanks, KG. I'm going to move to another question, but before I do that, Mark, do you want to respond to that at all?
No, it's unfortunate. I think that no matter what would have happened, that person would have fought for their job, and maybe or maybe not, they would have referenced the same posts because they were seeing them as a Facebook. I don't know. But to me, I'm willing to risk that to have people that I am close to and am friends with. Like, that's a risk I'm willing to accept.
Okay. So, Mark, can the reps truly trust your decisions if they know that you're more friendly with some reps versus others?
Hell no. Nobody should trust any leader's decisions. We're all just flying blind. KG, how does a guy like that lead ZipRecruiter the way he... No, I'm just kidding. Listen, I think that if you have a very subjective internal decision-making process, that it gets very confusing. If you have a very objective, data-driven decision-making process, then everybody understands how you do things. And that's, for better or for worse, that's how I operate. I am a very forgetful person by nature. I have to surround myself with processes all over the place, including how do I take my shower in the morning, or I will forget to put on my deodorant after my shower. And that process-driven mentality is carried through in how I lead teams. And therefore, most things you can look at a document or an LMS entry or a dashboard or something that explains exactly what I'm doing, because I just don't have the memory to operate any other way. So I don't think that it hurts me at all, because I'm pretty damn transparent about how I do things.
Well, I did hear a lot of people comment that post-COVID and this virtual environment was good for you because of the lack of deodorant sometimes. So,
No, home.
KG, here's a scenario. This is real. I put a lot of thought into this leading up to this debate. And I went to the Bahamas with my boss. I went to the Bahamas with my family, with his family, Bahamas for a week. And by the way, it probably wasn't I know that wasn't the only trip. We're friends to this day. I don't know. I was one of his top leaders for many years. I don't want to break my arm, pat myself on the back, but it worked out. What do you say to that?
My question back to you is, in retrospect, do you think that there was zero risk in doing that? Do you think your manager was taking on risk by bringing you, or do you believe in retrospect that there was zero risk to go into the Bahamas with your boss? And again, from his or her perspective, was there zero risk to going on a vacation to the Bahamas?
Yeah, I'm the one asking the questions here.
Mike, and look,
my time. So, Mark, God forbid, you're in the hospital. You're in the hospital for whatever. You're in there for a couple of weeks, and you have a rep who actually lives down the street, and the rep's family, they're bringing you food every single day for a couple of weeks, so you don't have to eat that shit food in the hospital. They have a couple of bad quarters right around that time where they're spending time bringing food to you in the hospital. Could that cloud your judgment?
No, because if the policy says 2 quarters of unperformance dictate a performance improvement plan, then there's nothing to discuss. That's where I'm talking about objective, data-driven management relieves the pressure and the risk of subjective decisions. If you're just like, Bob has been off for a couple quarters, I think we need to put him on a PIP, then you're fucked already. That means that you're worse than a friendly manager. You're a managed by random acts of management manager, and how you feel that day and whatever dashboard you happen to be looking at. No, I would treat that person exactly the same according to the rules, exactly how I would expect to be treated if I was them. What are the rules? Tame to me, and then let me play the game. What reps hate is playing a game in which they don't understand the rules of. And in my orgs, the rules are simple. Let's become friends. Let's talk about personal stuff. Help me unblock you professionally and personally so that you can deliver for the company and feel like you're having a great time and having fun and working hard. But we're going to play by these rules, which are the same rules for every single person in the organization.
All right. Hey, so I have a question for both of you guys. You tagged in a meme in a team Slack when it says, when your boss is your bestie, but he still makes you update Salesforce. What do you do?
Very simple.
Or do you schedule a one-on-one around tone?
No, I pay a base salary to receive certain things from someone. One of those is pristine CRM data. Not good, not at your, when you want to do it, pristine real-time CRM data. That's your base salary buys me that. If you aren't going to give me what I'm buying, then I won't continue to pay you. Pretty simple. So there's a million things like that. Like the base salary buys me things. And so again, like I'm not gonna mess around. People know the expectation. And what's crazy is not crazy, but I think what reinforces this all is when I get in front of an all hands, in front of 200 person sales org, and I'm about to release a new initiative. Guess what I show? I show the CRM data. I show all the stuff that I use to make that decision. And guess what? If I think the data is wrong, the next to last slide is, and you guys made this really tough for me because I didn't have good data. And we're going to work on that and get that fixed, right? If the data is awesome and I feel great about it, then that slide isn't in there. But I'm constantly trying to show people that what I pay for, I'm paying for a reason because I need it to make good decisions and to create a good, strong, successful environment. And that way people want to do it. And then I think also when a friend asks you to do something, you're more likely to do it than when your boss tells you. That's just my opinion, but that's how I've done it. I don't know if that was a question.
I agree with Mark. Now, I agree with Mark entirely. And the way you said it was right on. I pay you a base salary. I have certain expectations. And if you were a 1099 employee, hey, that all bets are off. But I pay you a base salary. And as a result, there's certain minimum things that I get to tell you to do, whether we're friends or not, by the way, because you're not friends with 100% of your salespeople, period.
No, there's some people you're not friends with. But I think that goes to a good comment in the comments where somebody's like, can it be viewed as preferential treatment? And that now, if you want to talk about risk, KG, that is a real risk, is when a handful of people say, you're not as good at friends with me as other people, and they're getting all the good leads.
Yes. And there's no risk to them ringing that bell, Mark.
I've had that bell rung. But it was easy for me to deal with because I had a transparent lead routing process that was well documented. And I was like, there's nobody that's touched this. This is exactly what happened. And their argument died.
Great. Did you fire that person then for making that claim?
Heck no. I went to them. They're like, hey, what's going on? Like, what? Do you feel left out? You don't feel like part of the team? Like,
want to be friends?
Yeah. You want to be friends? You want to go on vacation to the Bahamas together?
Will you be my friend?
So look, I guess this one's for Mark. So you fly into upstate New York. You have 2 reps there, right? Smaller territory. You have 2 reps. One of them you like and get along with and just you'll enjoy being around more. The other one, not so much. But there's only 2 of them. You fly in, you're there for a couple of days, and you call the one that you like hanging out with. The other one feels left out. How do you deal with that? Does that cause problems?
I wouldn't do that. Sometimes you're inviting and creating risk, and like going to a place where there's 2 reps and going to dinner with one of them and not even talking to the other one about it. That's just bad management. That's just bad team building. That's bad culture. So yeah, I wouldn't put myself in that position. I would call both of them and be like, y'all want to hang out? And we'd hang out.
All right. Both of them, for sure. Both of them.
Okay. Yeah. So there's a fun little question there in the poll, right? Your rep sends you a Venmo request for emotional labor during pipeline reviews. What do you do? While you're filling that out, I have one question left for each of you before we ask the audience to weigh in. And I saw a bunch of questions going into the chat. KG, if being friends is off limits, how do you replace the benefits of that deep personal connection that Mark's talked so strongly about? And do people feel that gap?
Look, okay, I have legions of salespeople that would work for me in a half a second, again, because they know that I truly care about them. But they also know that during the time with which they worked for me and we worked together, we weren't gonna cross that line. And I'm gonna say it again, and hopefully the audience gets the distinction here. I can still have that connection, but not be friends, okay? When I talk with my friends that I've known for 20 years, I tell them things, they tell me things, I share things. There's not a lot of limits with a real friend. With employees, there has to be that limit of the things that you mutually share. But that doesn't mean that I can't still care for somebody and care about taking them to the next level and care about their career and where they're going to go and tie what they do in their personal lives with what they're doing at work. And when you can combine those 2 things, the sales reps are going to say, it's clear that this person truly cares about me, but I don't have to be friends with them. I don't have to go to Coachella with them. I don't have to go to their house and drop off bagels or something like that. You could still have that real deep connection. and not be a friend, period.
Hey, by the way, I don't work for either of you, and I'd love to go to Coachella. I've never been. If that ever works out and you want to invite me, I will go. You've made the case, Mark, for friendship. What's a line you would never cross, and how do you enforce it? And maybe you just discussed it, but maybe just put a little bit more substance behind that. A common line you would never cross.
That's a really good question. I hate to say it depends on the person, but it's in some ways it does. Listen, I don't want to talk with people about, I don't know. I don't know what the line is, to be honest with you. I feel like I've talked to people about so many deep and awesome things that have helped them personally, and then that's helped them professionally. I don't know. Like, I definitely would never date somebody I work with. That's 100%. I'm definitely not going to hit on my coworker's wife when we're out. I mean, I don't know. I just think just normal human behavior with a twinge of professionalism, and wherever that line is drawn is probably where it is. Like, I think that you need to be a little bit discerning, but I don't know. I can't think of one right now.
Okay.
I will say this. I am very careful with being extremely respectful and aware when I'm with people of the opposite sex. I want to make sure that there's no confusion over like intentions or vibes I'm sending out or something like that. So I will be very aware of that, because not only do I want to not feed into that white male power hungry asshole stereotype. I have 2 daughters and an awesome wife, and I don't want them to deal with that in the world, so I'm not going to add to that. But at the same time, also, I think that is a risk that KG's talked about, which is too great, too prevalent for me to risk. So I'd say that would be a line, is just make sure that I can still be friends with the woman. Actually, my COO at my current company is one of my best friends, and we've been working together for 10 years, and she's totally awesome. But I won't cross certain lines with her, because I don't want there to be any kind of appearance of impropriety.
All right. I saw the poll come up. I think we should wait for that. So let's give the audience a chance to ask some questions. Mark, KG, we have 2 solid professionals here, and there's lines. There's not direct answers to all these questions, but love where you guys are going with this. Mike, can you help me make sure we get some audience questions in?
Yeah, you bet. I'm going to go ahead and let you unmute here now, self. So you can unmute yourself. Eric has the first comment. Go ahead there. Sorry, I remuted you after I.
No, listen, real quick. Great discussion, Mark and Kevin, Matt. Great topic. I guess the one question I have, just to cut to the chase, is what's the difference between creating social capital and being friends? Because what I'm taking away from this conversation, it's a spectrum. It's not one or the other. And Mark and Kevin, I hear you talk about creating this social capital. And right now I'm leaning more to Kevin's side, where I think I can create the right social capital as a leader with my team to give, to get, to work together, to trust, to do all those things. But it won't be as far as maybe being friends. I guess it's more to Mark, because I think I might know Kevin's view on this, but Mark, is there a difference between creating that social capital and being friends from your perspective, or does it depend on the person? What's your thinking there?
No, I think that if you have the ability to access your best leadership without being friends, and you can create social capital that allows you to do that, then you should maybe consider that. Me personally, I can't access that level of help and stewardship over people without some kind of deeper relationship. It's just hard for me. I'm, even though it might not seem like this, I'm the wallflower in the social gatherings. Go talk to my 3 or 4 friends. Don't talk to everybody. I'm the guy that like doesn't have that many friends. Just in my social life, I prefer fewer, deeper relationships. I think that really a lot what it comes down to is like, how do you want to live, and what is your personality type, and how do you want to be socially? And like, for me, I would rather be deeply in people's lives and helping them that way. But I think there's definitely a way to be just as effective without having that. I just can do it.
In the spirit of time, and we're going to ask Mark and KG, or KG then Mark, to give their 1-minute closing arguments and then put up the poll so that we could officially end on time. If the guests can stay on, for a few minutes after and take some audience questions if they have that, then we'll offer that too. But we want to make sure we give closing arguments and we have to give everybody a chance to vote on who is more persuasive with their argument. So with that, KG, give your closing argument.
Yeah, you got it. Listen, I get it. You think there's benefits to being friends with your team, but here's what I've learned after 27 years being in sales leadership. Being friends with your employees isn't just risky. It's galactically ridiculous. It's a mistake that you make that has zero upside, except for maybe you get a friend, but you really get nothing for it. Your friendship muddles your ability to hold people accountable, opens doors to favoritism, which is almost the worst part, and makes tough conversations start to feel personal instead of professional. Listen, your job is to lead with clarity and fairness and not to try and be liked at all costs. And don't get me wrong, and I've said it before, and I'm just going to say it again in my closing argument here. You can care deeply about your team without being their friend. And that's the balance that makes leaders respected and sales teams successful without having to be friends.
All right. Thank you, Kevin, and to you, Mark.
I would say that the primary job of a sales leader is efficacy, affecting change for other people. I don't think that people are as receptive to changing and trying things with people that they feel like they're being held at a distance from. And I'm willing to accept the risks that KG talks about, because not only does it match my personality, but I think it helps me get people to move faster and further than they would with a different type of relationship. And KG referenced that post I did about building your crew. That's one of the top things that when people ask me, what do I need to do to be a leader? I'm like, you got to build your crew. And my crew is probably 100 people deep. That's 100 people that if I needed help today, I could call, they would help me out. And I know KG has the same sort of thing, but if I need personal help, I just called my best VP from outreach and I need personal help right now. And guess what? We got on the call and he helped me work some things out. And maybe it's just me, maybe it's just my personality type, maybe it's my situation. But for me, I can't separate leadership from friendship. And I don't really want to, because I do still hold the ability to keep people accountable to the things that we talk about through transparent, data-driven, process-driven decision-making.
All right. Thank you, Mark. Both sides have delivered their closing arguments. And now it's your turn to weigh in. Mike's going to put up the poll. And basically the question is, which point of view is most persuasive? Mark's argument for managers being friends with their reps, or KG's stance against it? And while the votes are coming in, let me take a moment to say and give a big thank you to both of our guests, Mark Kosoglow, Kevin Gaither, for bringing the heat, the honesty, the experience, and being real and just being good human beings and good-natured and being willing to invest your time and help us take an idea and to action. So thanks to you guys for that. A round of applause. And I also want to thank Mike Montague, our producer, for helping bring this inaugural closing arguments event to life. He's the brains behind the operation, just the pretty face. To all of you watching, don't leave just yet. Guys, do you have a few more minutes to take some questions if anyone has them?
I can go to the top of the hour.
Can go for another 10 minutes.
Okay, perfect. Guys, gals, drop a takeaway in the chat. What idea, what question, what comments stuck with you? And if this format stirred something up for you, we'd love to know that too. What other debate topics should we tackle in the future? The conversation doesn't stop here. We're just getting started. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Mike to close out and see if we have quorum on the responses.
Yeah, we do. It looks like it was actually closer than I thought you would get to Kevin today with not being friends, but 65% saying you can or should be, but only a level 7 friends, not all the way 10 level friends, which also I think is a good indicator of the spectrum. And a lot of comments here about trust in situations in friendship. And I think, KG, really, that was the crux of your point that I heard today, which is you never know which situation is going to come up or when those situations are going to change. So there is an element of risk here, but I think we can all agree, at least the comments, that you should have empathy. You should be a good human being. You should build authentic professional relationships. Trust was a big word. Setting clear expectations was a big word. And with that, I'll kind of open it up to the comments. Anybody else that wants to chime in or ask a question or share a thought. I thought in general, this is a tough question. It's a spectrum type of question that is really tough to deal with in sales leadership. And so that's what we want to do here with CoachEm and the Coach2Scale podcast. If you have any of those other questions, or you want to do this again, pop that in the live poll for us right now. We'd love to do those. If you want to be a panelist and debate somebody else that has if you have a hot take that you think you can defend in one of these, we'd love to do that more in the future. And the CoachEm Academy is really cool. We can have these online discussions 24/7 if we want in this private forum that we've created just for sales leaders. So make sure you check that link in the chat too.
Hey, Mike, I got 2 things for you, by the way.
Go for it.
I was just getting into a debate on LinkedIn this morning with how salespeople should get paid. And I feel like there's a great debate that you can put forth. Should salespeople get paid on the booking, invoicing, revenue recognition, collections? I think that would be an interesting debate that it always ends up in depends. And then number 2, love you to death, Mark. I always have, and I totally respect what you have done. And what I'm taking out of this is that you and I actually agree. You and I actually agree that there is risk. But the difference here is that a personal preference, Mark has decided to take that risk. And you've said that multiple times. It's a risk you're willing to take. So you recognize there's risk, and everybody on the call should recognize there is risk. There's risk crossing the dang street, for God's sakes. We both recognize their risk. I choose not to take that risk after getting my ass handed to me multiple times. And Mark continues to take that risk because he believes that the upside is better than the 1% downside.
Thomas had a great question for you, KG, which is, what if you've already become friends with a colleague and then you get promoted to their manager? I've had that happen in my career. You got to reset. You already host? What happens then?
Yeah, no, this has happened to me. Okay. And I'm sure it's happened to plenty of others as well. And just like any relationship, use your words, man. Have the conversation and say, hey, now I'm in this particular role and we used to go do this and used to go do that. We might, again, this is how I have handled it and this is how I would handle it. We're going to have to tone it down. And I would explain to this person, I'd say, this isn't just about you and me. This is about now the rest of the team. And if you and I continue this friendship the way that we are, people are going to be throwing shade at you and me that you're getting all the good leads, you're getting the accounts, you're getting preferential treatment, you get to show up later, you don't have to go to the stand-up. People will make those claims. And so having those discussions, again, a good leader is going to be a good communicator. And whether you're a confrontational leader or not, you better learn to be able to have those kinds of difficult, hard conversations. You may not be comfortable doing those things in your natural state at home with your spouse and your kids and stuff like that, but you had better learn that skill being direct and somewhat confrontational with the people that you work with and the people that work for you. So use your words, man. That's what I would just say. Use your words and say there should be a line now. But Mark might not say that though. Mark would say, party on, people.
Lane. Party on, Garth.
Yeah, party on. Let's just keep the party rolling, man. Here's your Coors Light.
Mark, Colum had a question in the chat. I think it looks like you might have gone back and forth. One thing that we noticed, we're going at about 100 episodes on Coach2Scale, and a common theme is that managers struggle to have difficult conversations in a timely manner. And a big part of what you were saying is that if you're friends, it's even tougher to have that conversation that needs to be had. How common or how difficult is it for most managers that you've encountered to do what you're espousing?
Listen, I've been told that I create unique sales cultures. I don't know if that's unique good or unique bad, but it's unique, the definition of the word, that they're not common. Listen, I think most managers struggle with this, whether they're talking to a friend or not. Stink at it. I'll still remember I had a rep named Mike Seipel. I was a first-time sales manager, and I was the guy that was coming out with something cool and new and different every 2 weeks. And it was like, oh, go to this thing, talk this, and we'll have this contest, and these points roll over into this, and this thing, this. And I was doing it to have fun and because I thought it would help. But Mike Seipel emailed me, and he was like, dude, when do I get to do my job because of all this stuff that you're dropping on me all the time? And first-time sales manager, I immediately forward the email to my boss, the VP, and I'm like, John, can you believe Mike? What an asshole. Everybody else
Oh, wow.
is so great. Guess what? Guess who didn't hit forward? Guess who hit reply?
Oh,
This
no.
guy. So my boss immediately emails back, did you mean for Mike to be on this thread?
Oh,
Nope.
no.
And guess what happened then? The phone rang and there's the green button and the red button. Guess which one I pushed?
How-
I did.
Oh,
I
as a
pushed the red
first-time
button.
manager. As a first-time manager, you avoided it.
Press the red button. So it was a Friday afternoon. I still remember. I'm going to our family cabin. My kids and wife are already there hanging out with the grandparents. And halfway to the cabin, I'm like, I got to call Mike. I got to man up. Right. And pick up the phone. I call Mike. Mike proceeds to cuss me out for about 10 minutes. And he tells me I'm the worst manager he's ever had, blah, 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 blah. And my response to Mike was, Mike, I'm sorry you had to hear about it that way, but that's how I feel about you. What that allowed us to do is have a great conversation. And Mike left the company about a year and a half later. And when he left, he sent me a letter. And in that letter, he said, Mark, you've gone from the worst manager I've ever had to the best manager I've ever had. And I consider you a friend. And that to me that's the process. Like people don't want to have these conversations, just like they don't want to have tough conversations with their kids or their wife or whoever, or their spouse or their friends. But getting into like my wife is a master at the tough conversation. I know her motivation behind it is to help and not to harm. I know that she is thought about it and she's doing it thoughtfully, not just out of an emotional reaction. And we have I'd say 99% of the time we have an awesome conversation that we both learn from and we move on together. And to me, that's what managers are missing. They only look at, this is hard for me. I don't want to do this. This will end in a bad way. And they don't look at it like, this is a chance for me to get real with somebody and to deepen our relationship, friendship, by having a tough conversation about what expectations are or whatever. Yeah, I think most reps or most managers avoid it. Most managers have not had a Mike Seipel situation where they screwed up so badly they were forced into the conversation. And then most managers don't figure out how to navigate that in the right way to turn it around. And so I would just encourage people, like, not to pump up CoachEm, but CoachEm gives you data that you can now have objective conversations with people that you might not feel objectively about. And so I think that you need to have those type of tools and things in place that give you the ability to have the tough conversations in a non-subjective way. And that's what I did with Mike Seipel. And that's ultimately what changed his mind about me and really was my accelerant to being what I hope is a good sales leader.
I love what Laura just wrote, by the way. If we can't foster tough conversations with our reps, how can we expect our reps to do so with their clients? But Laura, the difference is the how. The difference is the how. So I would say two things about Mark's rep, Mike. One, you're lucky to have a rep like that felt comfortable enough to speak to you like that. However, putting it in writing to you that you were the worst boss ever is a stupid rookie move, and that shut you down. That shut you down. So the how is critically important. So having those candid conversations, Radical Candor was one of my favorite books that I finally read last year. You can only have radical candor when you care, by the way, okay? But when your rep, Mark, said you're the worst manager ever and put it in writing, you immediately went on the defensive, and that's not productive. And so Laura, to your point, there's also teaching your reps how to have those kinds of tough conversations with the people that are around them, not the least of which their clients. I've always said the best enterprise sales reps are the ones that they're jerks in a way. They never cross the line over into being unprofessional, but they're constantly pushing the ball forward, calling the client out when they're not doing what they committed to do. And they're not just saying, oh, that's okay, I know you're busy. Because they're trying to be friends. They're trying to maintain a relationship. And that's just not cool. Laura, I love what you wrote, but how you have those tough conversations is just as important as what you say.
Agreed.
Thank you, KG. Thank you, Mark. Matt Benelli for hosting the difficult conversation today and the Coach2Scale podcast. Hit +1 in the chat. Give them a virtual round of applause for putting their time and effort into the conversation today. Hope you enjoyed it. Everybody 100%. So they want to do this again. So we'll definitely do that as well. Until next time, keep going.
Jim, if you want to keep them.
Coach him if you want to keep them.
Thank you.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Coach2Scale, How Modern Leaders Build Coaching Cultures. For show notes and other episodes, visit us at CoachEm.io. That's CoachEm.io. And follow us on Twitter at CoachEmNow. See you all next week. Thanks for joining. And remember, coach 'em if you want to keep 'em.